What's going on there, guys? Darren here from NFL News Today, coming back at you with another video. The NFL Draft is a great way to rebuild your team for very cheap. Now that free agency is over, teams still have a couple more holes left to fill, which they plan on doing in the draft. In this video, I'll be giving my opinion on every team's biggest needs going into the 2021 NFL Draft. First, let's start off with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, I'm pretty sure everybody and their mother is expecting for me to say quarterback, but I'm actually going to go with safety here. Quarterback isn't really that much of a biggest need for them. I mean, their quarterback situation isn't awful. Gardner Minshew, in my opinion, is still a quality starter. It's just that Trevor Lawrence is 1,000 times better. However, if you look at their safety position, it's kind of not good. They traded away Ronnie Harrison early last year, and they really just have not found anybody to replace him. I know they signed Rashawn Jenkins in free agency, but is he really the answer to that position? They're able to upgrade the corner and the defensive line position in free agency. If they can get a solid stud safety in the draft, that defense is going to be looking pretty good once again. For the Jets, I think they have to adjust the quarterback position. They traded away Sam Darnold, and they have the number 2 pick. Just do the right thing and select Zach Wilson, please. For the Texans, I think they need to address their defensive line. Now, they had a pretty weird free agency. They signed mainly backup players with a couple of quality stars in there, but other than that, their team is still a mess, especially on the defensive side of the ball. If you look at their defensive line, Jadeveon Clowney has not been on the team since 2018, and J.J. Watt was released earlier this offseason. Ross Blacklock is a great young piece to build around on that line, and I think they should do just that. Just like the Jaguars, the Falcons also have to address the safety position. If I'm not mistaken, I believe both of their starting safeties from last year followed Dan Quinn over to Dallas, and they didn't really get anybody in free agency to replace them. So, yeah, Falcons, you might want to go get a safety. For the Bengals, it's simple. Just get Joe Burrow some offensive line help. Like, we all saw their uniform reveal video and that massive scar on his knee. Do the right thing, please. Don't draft Jamar Chase. Please go get him some offensive line help. The Eagles have a lot of holes left on their team, but in my opinion, I feel like they really need to attack the secondary in the draft, more specifically the cornerback position. The NFC East has some of the best wide receiving cores in the entire league, and the only promising part of their secondary is Darius Slay, who is on the wrong side of 30. For the Lions, I feel like they really need to get a wide receiver. They signed guys like Rashad Perriman and Tyrell Williams in the offseason, but they also let Kenny Golladay and Marvin Jones hit free agency. If they wanted to at least attempt to make Goff work out, do him a favor and get him an actual wide receiver. The Panthers need to focus on getting an actual CB1. James Bradbury left last offseason, and while they do have a couple of solid options at CB2, I don't really feel like anybody can be a true CB1 of that team right now. The Broncos really need to focus on getting edge help. It came down to that or middle linebackers, but I ended up choosing edge since it's not very easy to replace a future Hall of Famer in Von Miller, and plus you can pair him up with Bradley Chubb to create a nice 1-2 punch at the edge position. Going on to the Cowboys, they need to focus on getting a cornerback. Byron Jones left the team after 2020, and Trayvon Diggs was getting absolutely torched all season. They're in the perfect spot to do so in the first round, even though their owner has a couple of other ideas brewing. For the Giants, I think they need to focus on getting a solid edge rusher. Leonard Williams literally carried that defensive line last year, and they made the right move signing him to a long-term deal. But outside of him, they really have nobody else to help bring pressure onto the quarterback. For the Niners, I think they need to focus on getting a quarterback. I already made a video on why I think Mac Jones is the perfect pick for them at number 3, which you can watch right here, but to me, it just makes perfect sense for them to get the successor to Jimmy Garoppolo. The Chargers need to focus on offensive line. They struck gold selecting Justin Herbert at number 6 last year, and now they need to do everything they can to protect him. He already has a lot of weapons surrounding him and not a lot of holes on defense. The Vikings need to focus on getting some sort of defensive help. They have so many holes on that side of the ball that I'm having trouble saying I'm confident in any of their positions. The Pats need to look for a QB. Now, it's not easy to replace the greatest quarterback of all time, but let's just say there was a reason why Bill Belichick did not want to trade Jimmy Garoppolo in 2017, because he knew he would have to go through this. The Cardinals must get help in the secondary. Patrick Peterson and Drake Kirkpatrick are gone. Not that either of them were really good the past couple years anyway. Byron Murphy has been playing some very bad football. Jalen Thompson is injured almost every game. And Budda Baker is an absolute liability in coverage. It is clear that they're in win now mode, and if they want to do that, they have to go out and get a stud corner. The Rays are pretty simple. They just need to get some offensive line help. They blew up their O-line this year, and when I say they blew it up, I mean they literally blew it up. Carr has had the privilege of playing behind one of the best trenches in the NFL the past couple of years, and if you don't get anybody to protect him, he will absolutely struggle. For the Dolphins, they have a couple of positions left that need to be addressed, but I'm going to put them down as wide receiver. Tua not only looked average last year, but didn't really show any signs of really stardom, and if they want to make him work, you gotta get him a wide receiver that you can pair him up with for years to come. Washington needs to find their future quarterback. Fitz is on a one-year deal and can be a great mentor, and while Heineke did look good in the limited playing time he got, it would be a huge gamble to name him your starting quarterback. The Bears have a ton of holes on their team, but I think they need to focus on the cornerback position. Now, quarterback could be another position to go with also, but I think it's fair to give Andy Dalton a shot. However, releasing a Pro Bowl corner to sign him just does not make any sense. For me, the Colts need to get either wide receiver or offensive line. Now, they do have a couple of solid players at both positions, but considering what Wentz went through last year, I think it's a good idea to get a replacement for Anthony Costanzo. The Titans need to address corner in the draft. Now, they addressed a glaring need in free agency in their defensive line by signing Danico Autry and Bud Dupree. However, they did also lose Corey Davis and Jonnu Smith. With Arthur Smith being a defensive-minded head coach, I feel like they would target that side of the ball, especially after they lost Adoree Jackson and Malcolm Butler to free agency. Seattle can also look to focus on their secondary. Adams did not have the best year in coverage last year, and Dalton and Griffin are no longer on the team. If the Seahawks want to win another ring, they have got to focus on the secondary in the draft. For the Steelers, they have got to get some offensive linemen in this year's draft. Now, I know you might be saying, but they don't have a running back. And you're right, they really don't have a quality running back. But what's the use of having a good running back if you're not going to put a good offensive line in front of him? Plus, with Big Ben being one of the few pocket passers left in the league, I think it's important to get him some protection, especially after the losses of Marquise Pouncey and Alejandro Villanueva. It was very tough picking a need for the Rams. They have a very solid team overall, however, they did lose a couple of key players in free agency, so I'm going to put them down as safety. John Johnson III was one of the most underrated safeties last year, and now he's off in Cleveland. They had one of the best defenses last year, and if they want to keep that up, they have to find his replacement. Speaking of Cleveland, I had trouble deciding on who they should pick also. It was either between corner or edge, but I ended up going with the latter after the signing of Jadeveon Clowney. Now, it is a one-year deal, but that does allow them to get a prospect later in the draft, allowing them to focus on the cornerback position as soon as possible, and it would be really nice if you can get Denzel Ward some help on the other side of the field. Now, I might get some heat for this, but that's fine because I'm releasing a video tomorrow on it, but I feel like the Ravens need to focus on offensive line, and wide receiver is the last position they need to address. They just traded away Orlando Brown Jr., and we all saw how bad they played in the playoffs. I think if Lamar Jackson wants to continue to have success in the league, you have got to get him some protection up front. New Orleans should look to get a future safety. Now, Malcolm Jenkins is not getting any younger, and Marcus Williams is not exactly the best coverage safety. If they want to continue to have a great defense, I feel like getting a stud safety in the early rounds will really benefit them. Green Bay needs to get another wide receiver. The amount of times they have just neglected this position has gone on for far too long. Please do Aaron Rodgers a favor and get him a nice number 2 receiver. Buffalo has a pretty solid team already, and they really don't have a lot of holes, but I feel like they could get a nice tight end in the draft. They did sign Jacob Hollister in free agency, but a really good young tight end can help that team for years to come. The Chiefs somehow literally tore down the offensive line and rebuilt it in the same free agency. Not only that, but they acquired players in 4 different ways. But considering how Tom Brady torched their secondary in the Super Bowl, I can see them addressing the quarterback position. And finally, that brings us to the Bucs. They were the first Super Bowl champion to retain all 22 starters for the first time since the 70s. Now, that does give them a little bit of leeway in the draft, but I feel like they need to focus on getting a nice young defensive lineman who can be a rotational piece this year and then slide into a starting role next year. Well, that's it for this video. Make sure you hit the like button and comment if you agree or disagree with my picks. And while you're down there, make sure you go share this video with all of your friends and check out a couple of my other social media links, including Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Thank you all for watching and have a great day.